now. 360. I woke up this morning and I said, instead of waiting for a good day to happen, waiting around.
Hello and welcome to Algebra Slope-Intercept form. Now for my algebra students, I know we already covered this, but if you are having any questions on it, this is a good video to watch, to stop, just kind of review, make sure you understand this. And of course, later on in the year, after it's been a while since we've done this, it might be good to go back and review. So let's talk about slope-intercept form. When we are referring to slope-intercept form, we're of course referring to the y equals mx plus b format. And what that looks like in general is just the y is by itself with the m, or the slope, is multiplied by the x variable, plus b, which is our y-intercept. And speaking of slope, which is the same m here as it is here, remember we can calculate slope using our picnic table equation, where we subtract our y's, subtract our x's. Remember, x is on the bottom. Number one mistake, y's, those fancy glasses on top, with of course floating butter in the middle. Number two mistake, making integer errors. So let's not do those. So quick first example, just if you had to calculate slope given points, we're going to look at each of these points as x, oh that's sloppy, x and y, x and y. So we need y's, so let's subtract the y's. Now it says y sub 2 and y sub 1. Technically we should take the second one. It doesn't matter which order you take them in. So, but if I did take them in order, I would say negative 2 minus 2. Those are my y's. That's going to be over 5 minus negative 3. And I'm using those parentheses because remember, this is subtraction right here in between each one of those, floating butter, and of course the bar between the x's, and when you're subtracting a negative, that's going to turn it into adding. So we can do that right now. This is going to become 5 plus 3, which is of course 8. And negative 2 minus 2, if you wanted to turn this into adding the opposite, which was our rule for integers, it would be negative 2 plus negative 2, which would just give us negative 4. And we can simplify that to be negative 1/2 is our slope. So if you remember, in terms of rise over run, negative 1 would be a rise, 2 would be a run for the line that goes through these 2 points. And besides the slope, in the slope-intercept form, we have the intercept. In this case, the y-intercept. That is where the line crosses the y-axis. B for begin. So when you start graphing, we begin with the y-intercept and then use the slope to rise and run. Okay, so looking at our first example, this one's pretty easy. If we had to find the slope and y-intercept of these two lines, first one, the slope is the number next to, when it's in slope-intercept form, it's very easy. Its slope is the number next to the x, the m, it's 3. If you wanted to write it 3 over 1 as a rise and run, that's helpful. And then of course our b, I know it says plus, but when you have a minus there, that means that our y-intercept is negative 2. So we'd begin at negative 2 and rise 3, run 1 to complete the graph. But oh no, what do we do when this is not written in slope-intercept form, it's actually in standard form. So like I said before, we need to get the y by itself. So let's get the y by itself. I'm going to recopy this here. And we have to get this y by itself. So do you see this 5x? We're going to need to move it over to this side, get it away from the y. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. Yep, this is the literal equation stuff that we did earlier. And that just leaves us with there's a hua, and that leaves us with 3y is equal to 15 minus 5x. I'm going to put the x first. And if we put the x first here, that'll leave us with 3y is equal to negative 5x plus 15, because we're trying to get it in slope-intercept form, but it is not quite the same because we have a y here and a 3y here. So last step, we're going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. That's dividing everything on that side by 3. That would give us a y equals, and negative 5x divided by 3. We can just leave that as a fraction, remember? Rise over run. And then it also means 15 divided by 3, so 15 divided by 3 is positive 5. So to answer the actual question, the slope of this line is -5/3. And you don't write the x, you just write the number because it's the number in front of the x in the m position, and then the y-intercept would just be 5. Alright, so let's apply that to when we have to graph. Now, just a few notes. This graph looks a lot weirder than I thought. So these numbers are kind of like slightly below, but we're going to use the squares, not the numbers, when we're graphing this. So if we had to graph y is equal to 1/2 x minus 3, we start at the y-intercept. It's already in slope-intercept form for us, so begin right there at -3. So we're going to go down to 1, 2, 3, and put a point. That's our y-intercept. Next is our slope. Slope is 1/2. That means we're going to rise, if you can follow along here. So there's where we start. Rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. And we repeat. You should have 3 points when you graph, so we're going to rise 1, run 2, rise 1, run 2. And those are some beautiful dots. I'm going to connect those dots to make a straight line. Oh my gosh, that is the perfect straight line. Yeah, you try drawing on this program, see if you can do better. But that would be the graph of y equals 1/2 x minus 3. We've graphed it. We've graphed all the possible solutions that could fill into that equation. So next, 5x minus 2y equals 10. Looks different, right? It's not in slope-intercept form, so we have to get it in slope-intercept form. Let's get that y by itself, and we're going to do that by subtracting 5x from both sides. This is a hua, and then we're going to have -2y is equal to -5x plus 10. I know they're not like terms, keep them separate anyways. Getting closer to slope-intercept form, because now just divide both sides by -2, and I divide by -2 to cancel out the other negative. I get y equals -5 divided by -2. Let's keep that as a fraction, but we can, negative divided by negative is definitely positive. Then over here, 10 divided by -2 would be, not so bad, minus sign, -5. Okay, that's good enough for us to graph. So I'm going to graph this in blue. And I'm going to go down to -5 as my y-intercept. It's where we begin. Oh, I'm off a little bit, but you get the idea. Now we're going to rise 5. 1, get the pointer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run 2, and put a point there. And then repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. And that will be our line. But the key is there, you have to get it in slope-intercept form first. So rise 5, run 2 would be here. Rise 5, run 2 would be there. And that is beautiful to connect. And there we go. That is y is equal to 5 over 2, x minus 5. So, a little bit of review. Hopefully, if you ever forget how to graph and use slope-intercept form, you can go back, watch the video. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend.